Well, good afternoon, test. Let me move this up just a second here, hang on. Sorry for everybody that I'm scratching on the live circuit there. Is that better? Good? All right. Thank you all for coming to this afternoon to hear me talk about the 5 things that matter. This talk for me is an important one because it's the 5 things that I typically see in most security programs where we have a lot of problems with. And with my talks, I like to keep them fairly high level and also super technical as well and balance both of those. So I'll give you some nice bypass techniques for Windows Defender and some other things throughout the talk and everything else. But really this talk kind of hits home to me because it's one of the things where when we go into a lot of companies, we see a lot of different things. Appreciate the background. It's been fun being in the cybersecurity space. It's interesting. My dad just recently Twittered. Since my dad got Twitter, it's been really interesting actually. So I know a lot more about him than I thought I would ever know about my dad. And so one thing he did recently is a few years ago, he spoke at DerbyCon. And he let the whole world know that I was scared of clowns. And it has not stopped since. I get people sending me clowns all day, every day. There's people threatening to hire clowns to come to the office. Like it's been a whole bunch of things. But recently, he just released my report card from when I was a senior in high school, which I had all Fs except I had 1 B, and it was in typing. And other than that, I filled out of high school, and I graduated in summer school to go there, and I shortly joined the Marines after that. But it's been a great ride. I would never thought being able to talk in front of people was a thing, or being able to do computers for a living was a thing. So it's been a really awesome experience, and I've gotten a lot of great things to do for it. With that, I'm going to show you a quick video. And this is one of my favorite things in life that I actually got to be a part of, kind of. I'm part of this segment. But this is from Mr. Robot. And in season 3, Elliot is basically getting fired from Evil Corp, and he's trying to evade the security folks so that he can stop the Dark Army from actually taking down Evil Corp. And so Elliot is basically trying to evade security and get around them. And you'll hear him throw a little thing in here that I thought was really cool. It's kind of cool when that they drop your name on a TV show that you've been working with and helping out. And it's been neat because throughout this series, and you look at the screens, and in Season 1, Episode 5, when Elliot is hacking into Steel Mountain, they use a social engineer toolkit to spoof a text message that allows them into Steel Mountain. And then Season 3, Episode 1, I think it was, when Darlene lit the fire up in all the money, the ransomware that they deployed through the social engineer toolkit. So a lot of really neat things you get to experience, and really cool. Interesting enough, too, I've also been in a rap video. Never thought that would happen. I was in a Chris Brown rap video, and it was really interesting. I flew out to LA, and it's a really interesting piece where he basically reached out to our website, the producer did, and he's like, hey, can Dave advise us on this rap video? I didn't know who it was at the time. And I'm like, the only restriction is that Dave needs to be in the hacking video, or it needs to actually be in the video. So there I'm in the back, like hacking away, and the whole premise is that Chris Brown broke up with his girlfriend, and he wants to delete all of the pictures off of her phone, so he hires his best friend Dave to come in and delete all the photos off of there. So I don't know, it was really cheesy. Don't look it up at work, by the way. It's definitely not safe for work in any way, shape, or form. But that was kind of a fun one too. So while we're here, is that when we look at security, we talk a lot about things that that are our challenges, right? And we all have challenges. I always like to make the joke that we could fix security today, and actually, you can walk out here with the $1 million secret of fixing security today. Right now, I'm going to give it to you for free, okay? And that's if you have one dedicated person to security for every single one employee that you have at your organization. Because you could just sit behind them and be like, no, don't click that. Like, you just clicked it, okay, hang on. Grab the computer, pass it over to the person next to you, they reimage, and you're all set, right? Security would be fixed. It solves all the issues that we deal with today. Software development lifecycle, you have a security person behind, they're like, that's SQL injection, you can't code it that way, code it the other way. Oh, okay, got it, okay, cool. You know, literally fix things as we see it today. We don't have that luxury. So a lot of us deal with a lot of different things, whether it's politics, whether it's not enough funding or staff, whether it's not having the people to be able to support it. There's a lot of things that create challenges in our environment, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And still to this day, I haven't found a piece of technology that's replaced me yet, personally. Artificial intelligence has not replaced us as attackers or defense. There's a lot of things coming out from a marketing perspective that are kind of interesting. So what are the top 5 things that matter to, at least to me, when it comes to security? It might not be everybody, but these are things that I commonly see pretty much across the board. Before we start in the basics here, it's easy to say that everything's broken. And I don't think everything is broken. In fact, what I would say is that over the past 10 years, I've seen security go through a complete transformation where we've gotten better. We're at a place now where you actually see defenders winning against the red team. We're at a time now where people are actually detecting attacks earlier on. Now, it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form. You see something like Starwood and Marriott, right, where they had breaches for 3 or 4 years without detection. Again, not perfect in any way, but we're getting better in a lot of cases that we're doing. And I can honestly say, being a red teamer, and I'll talk about what that actual concept means, because it's changed a lot over the past 10 years. But actually being a red teamer, I can say it's substantially harder for me to break into companies. Substantially harder. One little thing can totally set off an analyst and go into triage mode to figure out what was actually happening. One of our testers recently was doing a red team engagement, and we have our own research and development team over at TrustedSec, and they develop all this cool weaponized tools that we use and we don't disclose. We just use them for our customers, for them to get better and everything else. And there might be a debate about that or whatever, I understand. But we use this awesome, amazing thing on this customer for a red team. Got into their environment, bypassed all their EDR products, got command and control infrastructure, completely undetected. It's perfect. We use a bunch of undocumented ways of getting remote code execution onto the system, things that haven't been discovered yet, flew completely under the radar, right? And you might be like, well, why are you doing that first? But I'll explain here in just a second. What was interesting is about 4 minutes later, we got detected. 4 minutes, using some really amazing tradecraft that we had spent years of developing, and we got detected in 4 minutes. How did we get detected? Well, what they had done in their environment, which I thought was really unique, is that they baseline people on 2 categories, technical and non-technical. And what they look for is anybody that would run command line arguments. In this specific case, we looked at ipconfig to see what the network we were on. Harmless, obviously. It's not code execution in any way, shape, or form. But this person fell in a non-technical category and typed in ipconfig. Boom, nailed, right? It's stuff like that that makes it really challenging for us as attackers to start to go into environments where we don't know where all the landmines are at. And that was never the way 5 years ago, by the way. 5 years ago, we can go in with Metasploit, run Autopwn, destroy a bunch of systems. The only way they would know is if the system crashed, right? Things have changed substantially over the past 5 to 10 years to where we are a better industry, and it's amazing to see all of the work that's gone into making that possible. And that's all to people. That's all the people in this room sitting here today, making your organizations better every time of what you're doing. And that's a huge testament to what we're starting to see. So what are some of the things that we see out there? Number one, the basics. The basics still kick our butts today. We want to stop adversaries from breaking in using zero-day exploits, and we still have password 1 as our main password for all of our users, right? And that's a people problem, right, in many cases. There's a lot of things that we have to incorporate into that. But weak passwords, password management, two-factor authentication, segmentation, my God, right? Segmentation is one of those things where we should have been doing a long time ago, but we have to re-architect how we do business. Try doing that in a large organization. Small organizations might be a little bit easier, but large organizations, re-architecting and redesigning your entire infrastructure is a major thing. Probably one of the most effective ways that we get stopped as attackers is through application whitelisting, by far today. Application whitelisting, again, by far the most effective control you can put into your environment today to stop most of the stuff you see out there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's what we call living off the land, binaries and scripts, and there's ways of circumventing those controls. But guess what? Guess what 84% of the noise is today? Binaries and applications that are untrusted in your environment. 84%. What happens when you take that away? You don't have 84% anymore, right? So now you have 16%. Did I do the math right? Yeah, okay, thank God. I always freak out about that with that one statistic. I get the numbers wrong. Then you have 16% now you can focus on in your environment to say, hey, these are the things that we can do differently to identify the noise and monitor for deviations of patterns of behavior in your environment. So again, one of the most effective ways out there. Not easy. Does anybody try to implement application control across your entire environment in high integrity mode without any exceptions? Not happening, right? Not happening. But there are ways for us to at least get it in there to do a little bit better of a job. Some basics that I see, blocking unsite executables and user profile directories as a start, like basic, right? Hey, if it's not a code sign application, just block it in your user app data and your downloads and everything else, and don't allow it to execute in the first place. Guess what that does? Probably about 75% of that 84% that you see out there today. Constrained language mode, being able to implement, so let me just get this out of the way. Do regular users need PowerShell? Hell, there's kids in here, heck no. Heck no. Regular users do not need PowerShell, right? So why does every user need access to PowerShell? You could do that within group policy, right? If you have software restriction policies, you have app blocker and device guard, right? You can do that directly within group policy to say, hey, if they're not part of these groups, don't allow them to execute PowerShell. And there's 2 locations, by the way, in PowerShell. People always forget this. You have /Windows, /System32, /Windows PowerShell, /version 1.0, /PowerShell.exe, and PowerShell_ISE.exe. Okay, those are your 2 main locations. But you also have syswall64, which is under your Windows directory, Windows /syswall64, /Windows PowerShell, /version 1.0, /PowerShell.exe, and then PowerShell_ISE.exe. Those 2 locations are your 2 main culprits for what you want to lock down with those specifically. So disallowing regular users for access. PowerShell version 6 and above, heavy logging. Everybody familiar with script block logging? Has anybody ever enabled script block logging? Did anybody crash servers when they did that? Did your Splunk licensing go up $10 million? Yes, right? So script block logging is amazing. It's also the most noisiest log that you're going to have in your entire environment. And I wish we lived in a world where money wasn't a problem. Like again, 1 security person to 1 employee. When you enable constrained language mode, there is stuff of Microsoft's internals that you never want to see deployed in your environment from those PowerShell scripts, man. They do stuff, especially if you're Office 365 user or Azure customers. The amount of unsigned PowerShell code that is flying through your network is absolutely astonishing. It's incredible. And by the way, if you ever want to pull a SOC out, by the way, just take one of those scripts. They're like 700 pages long. Put your shellcode injection in the middle of it because no one's ever going to see it. And just upload and you're all set. Because they're not code signed in the first place, it's still going to create this Microsoft function and do all of this stuff, and it's also going to get you remote code execution at the same time without being seen. So FYI on that one specifically. So PowerShell version 6 and getting more verbose into logging. What's interesting with PowerShell is that it integrates into what's called the anti-malware scan interface, which I'm going to show you an example here in a few. AMSI is a great abstraction layer for getting a little bit more clearer of what actually is about to be executing on your system right before it hits the actual interpreter itself. And so with AMSI, there's what's called AMSI scan string and AMSI scan buffer. And what you can do with PowerShell scripts specifically is scan those prior to it actually executing in your system, which gives you a lot more verbosity. Now the issue with AMSI is it runs in user land mode, so as a user you can disable it. So there's a number of ways of defeating AMSI, shutting it down completely. But what you'll see in a demonstration here is that even with AMSI detection, you only have to modify things in just this tiny, tiny, tiny way to circumvent their complete detection criteria. So it's still a really rudimentary way of detection. But still, good visibility if you're pulling that data back to look at that. I'm a huge fan of Sysmon. Sysmon leverages what's called kernel-level event log tracing for Windows, ETW. It's a great way of getting more visibility into things that are happening in your environment without having to deal with crazy kernel drivers. So Sysmon's a great way to deploy to your environment to see a lot of good stuff. And Olaf has probably one of the most comprehensive Sysmon configuration files. And what's great about Sysmon is you can actually configure them to be alerts and alarms. It does its own essential correlation, essentially. You can say, and if this does that, and okay, that's good. And then send this alarm back that specifically does something. This is great for living off LAN binaries and scripts and everything else. Please, please, please enable the Windows firewall internally. Just that's easy, isn't it? For users. Not easy? Easy? No? Easy? A little easy? Kind of easy? For regular users. Why does that matter? Workstation to workstation communication is typically how we move for lateral movement. So you enable the Windows firewall, basic concept, and all of a sudden I can't pivot from Bob in IT to Bob in sales to Mary in IT's computer. You eliminate an attack surface that we previously had that we wouldn't have necessarily if we had those just controls out there. Detections. I will repeat this throughout this presentation. This is one of the most important pieces out there, but in order to do endpoint detection, and in order to do detection at all, you need to have endpoint logs. I'll repeat that. You need to have endpoint logs. I know your Splunk licensing goes up to $10 million, but you need, and I'm not a rep for Splunk, by the way, either, but you know, whatever you have for your SIEM or your correlation engine, if you're using something like Elasticsearch, all you need is storage then, right? But you leverage something like endpoints, you have to have logs. That's where most of your attack surface comes into. And again, obviously other things like east and west traffic, not just north and south when it comes to communications, DNS logs, script block logging is great. Command line auditing, another group policy feature, right? You turn that on, you can see command line auditing as it's going on. Why is Bob in sales executing an IP config? Some decent pieces there. Visibility first. Understanding specific tactics, techniques, and procedures that attackers use in your environment from a detection standpoint. What I see in most companies, and what I do a thing called IANS. There's a thing called Ask an Expert, which apparently I'm pretending to be an expert. And so when you're an expert, one of the biggest calls that I get is, how do I take MITRE's techniques and how do I run them in my environment and how do I write detections off of them? That's going to be and they call it that's my adversarial simulation program. I'm like, okay, we got a lot of discussion to talk about here, okay? So what happens with a lot of these techniques out there is that you're not focusing on the tactics or the procedures that the attackers are operating by, or even understanding your threat models around which groups are specifically focused on you as an organization. And what ends up happening is you get a bunch of command line parsing tools that you're writing specific detections for. And to circumvent them is usually very trivial. A good example is a tool that I wrote called Magic Unicorn, which is a PowerShell exploitation framework. And one of the customers that we were working with would look for encoded command, which if you're not familiar with PowerShell, encoded command is the way to essentially get around what are called execution restriction policies. And so with encoded command, you can cast something in Unicode and base64 encode it, and your entire application would then run by running encoded command. So a lot of people look for encoded command being run in their environment. You look for -E, -EN, -ENC, -EC, by the way, which a lot of people don't know about. So I wrote Unicorn to basically convert encoded command back at the very end, but you never actually call encoded command in the first place, which circumvents all the detection criteria that's out there. So again, looking more at the behavior, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, becomes really important than the actual technique that was being leveraged in your environment. I'd want to know every single time PowerShell communicating out to the internet. Is that going to generate a lot of false positives? Yep. Can I baseline my environment? Yep. Will I get a lot less as time goes on? Yep. Do I need people to do that? Yes. So, behavior becomes really, really important in environments, but you need the people to be able to really establish that and use it. And so my personal belief is that we purchase tools to try to fix poor security programs. And let me talk about that for a second, okay, this concept. Because if you have a group that is already overworked, right? Is anybody here not overworked? Does anybody just chill at their office? They don't do anything, they just chill? Got one? That's pretty awesome. Oh, okay. Like one person. Just chill at the office and don't do anything. You're not dealing with meetings or fires. What would be great is if we could just focus our entire day on security, but that never happens, right? We're dealing with a lot of other things. You got ITIL and change control. We got to go to the CAB meeting for something else and do this and that. And then we have audits going on where we have to provide context and data to it. Oh, hey, there's a fire over here where the system's burning down. Was it our endpoint agent that did it? There's all these different things that impact us on a day in, day out. And so when you take a piece of technology that you already have embedded in your environment and you say, this product is crap, and you rip it out and you put a brand new piece of technology in, what happens? That next product is going to be just as crap because it's how you're leveraging the tools and technology. You don't have the resources to be able to leverage it in the same way you can anything else. And like I hear all the time, like our vulnerability management scanner sucks. We're using Qualys, we're using Nessus, or we're using Rapid7, or whatever you want to use. It sucks. And I'm like, well, what's your process? Well, we don't have a process. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. It's not the scanner that's your fault. It's your program that you built around it that is not working as anticipated. You need to focus on that. So usually when we purchase new tools, we already have everything we need today in our environment typically. You may need to supplement a couple of things, but we usually already have the technology today to do what we need to do, yet we go and we buy the latest and greatest because it's next gen. It's awesome. So most organizations we see are still at the basic concept level. They don't have a lot of the enhanced detections. They're not focusing on simulations and emulations, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a few minutes. Some are much further ahead than others. There's a company that we do work for that probably has one of the best security programs that I've ever seen. And I love to tell the story because it's where we just got annihilated to where we looked like a bunch of kids, and we don't like that feeling, right? When we're going on a red team engagement, and you get in and they detect you and they shut you out in every single way, shape, or form possible that you could have gotten into their environment, and then the entire blue team is clapping and cheering on the phone while they're like, yeah, we beat Trusted Sec, yeah, and everybody's like cheering, and you're like, so we're playing like Careless Whispers in our Slack channel and like eating popcorn and ice cream to get over it. And one thing we decided is, hey, that we don't never want to have that happen again. And so next time around, we destroyed them, and then we were clapping on the phone. And then the next time around, they destroyed us. It's that back and forth that works really well, right? But the way that they do it is they have an entire team that focuses on understanding their threats in their environment and building their program around that, and then simulating that in these types of tests and simulations that we see out there. So again, some of these are great use examples of things that actually work in environments that we've seen. And collaboration is one of the biggest pieces that I can't hit home enough about. I'm going to break down the concepts here, and sorry if this is an education or not a repeat of something that you already know. But when we talk about blue team and red team, we talk about purple teaming. Purple teaming isn't a new concept. Purple teaming has been around since 2007, at least that's as far back as I could find the term usage of purple teaming. And purple teaming isn't a new thing that we're trying to build on top of the security industry. What purple teaming is just collaboration between the red team and the blue team. And what we used to do, and I'll talk about this here in a little bit, we used to go in and we used to just break everything. And you'd break everything, you'd hand an awesome report to your customer, and you'd walk out like, man, I just destroyed this company, they're totally screwed, good luck. And then next year you come back, same thing, destroy them again. They fixed all the technical findings, but they didn't fix the reason why those technical findings were there in the first place. And so year after year after year after year, it was Red winning, 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 and it was Red doing their mystique and their amazing feats and their cool hacker stuff and their screens flying with green text everywhere with cool ASCII art. Have to have ASCII art in order to be considered a hacker, my opinion. It's also a prerequisite for any tools that we release at TrustedSec. It's actually in the tool release guide. You have to have ASCII art. And you get judged on the ASCII art too. So anyways, but that wasn't the right way of doing things. We weren't helping anybody by going in and destroying companies every time. Where companies really start to shine is when you have that collaboration between Red and Blue, where instead of doing covert all the time to test the effectiveness of your incident response program, you're doing overt testing. You're working with them as you're going through your simulations, and you say, listen, here's the things that we're doing, here's the things that you can get better on, here's the things that you're just missing as far as detection. You walk out of there completely different than, hey, here's a list of 10 findings that I have to patch specific systems for. And so that collaboration really becomes really, really important. I'm a huge believer on simulations and emulation. I think tool releases are great. There's a lot of debate right now on whether or not tool releases do more harm than good, whether researchers disclosing techniques do more harm than good. I'm a huge advocate of giving tools to people that may not be able to develop those tools so they can test their own environment. Attackers are going to do it. Why can't we have the same types of tools out there? Yes, they're going to be used by adversaries. Cobalt Strike, by the way, is used all the time by Russia, all the time. Would you say that Cobalt Strike's a bad tool? No, we use it as testers all the time to test the effectiveness because we don't have a MUDGE to be able to build that tool internally to our own capabilities. And so we have to have the tools necessary to do our jobs, as does any carpenter that has to do their jobs. Could a carpenter take one of his devices and stab somebody with it? Absolutely. But when it comes to research, we have to have that conduit of getting better and working better to one goal of making things more secure. Without simulations, Red and Blue don't understand each other. So when I go through and I do a simulation of somebody, my goal isn't to destroy them. And, well, not anymore. I used to really like to destroy people, but it used to be that way. My goal is to make them better in what they're actually accomplishing. And so simulations and working through these types of things make a big deal. Usually companies don't even have a foundation. By the way, we hear all the time, hey, we want a red team. And we're like, okay, what does that mean to you? Like, oh, we want you to just like completely annihilate us and break into us so that we know exactly where all of our weaknesses and our exposures are in our environment, so that then we can patch them all and be secure. I'm like, that's not how any of this works, by the way. This is not a red team for you. Most organizations that we deal with are not at a maturity level to deal with red team engagements. Almost 99% of them are not at a level that they even need red teams in their environment. They don't even have basic forms of monitoring and detection, or even having endpoint logs in their environments. What is a red team going to do for them other than destroy them and show them where they have faulty programs in there? And that can be used as a wedge too. So one thing I'll say is red and blue are better together. And I'm a huge advocate of that. I have become more blue. I still say I'm red team, but my whole operation of thinking is all blue. Like, if I'm going to write something, a tool, a new technique, or an attack vector, how am I going to stop that? When I do something new or unique, I make sure that it doesn't impact blue, like by releasing a specific exploit, to the wild to impact other organizations and companies. I used to never think about that. I used to write exploits all the time, publish them up in Millware. I'm like, yeah, I just got this awesome 0 day. Here you go. Good luck, vendor. Go patch it. A little bit more refined now. And times are a lot different, by the way. That was a badge of credibility, earlier in the times of what exploits you can write and get around data execution prevention and stuff like that. But again, we talk about the red team today like it was 10 years ago. And we always say, oh, the red team is not special. I hear that all the time. Like, the red team's not a special group. Well, yeah, they are a special group. They understand offensive capabilities within an organization. If you're not applying the red team the right way, then you're right. They're just sitting there destroying your environment. And so the terminologies that we use around penetration testers, by the way, 10 years ago, right? Pen testers just come in, they just destroy our organization, and they walk out. Yeah, I guess that still happens in environments, but that's not exactly what we're designed to be doing in organizations. The term hacker, by the way, applies to both red and blue. It's not just the red team that is hackers. The blue team are hackers as well. Aren't you hacking our stuff up to figure out how to defend it? Aren't you writing awesome code to figure out ways to respond to us more effectively? We're all hacking together in this specific way. And so the industry changed. And this happened a while ago. It just takes a lot of terminologies, fixes to do this. People think that red teams are pen tests. People think that pen tests are vulnerability assessments. People think that vulnerability assessments are red teams. People think that physical assessments are, social engineering, which it can be a component of that. So there's a lot of terminology issues that we face in this industry right now, and a lot of it really is, hey, red team's more designed to understand your threat models towards your organization and build your capabilities off of what the capabilities are of that organization, and to be a little bit better. That's it. Not exponentially better, but going to the level of what that organization is willing to actually accomplish. You might see a theme here around sharing and collaboration, but when we work together and understand things, we get better. Research, by the way, sharing things and getting better. Tools, doing different things out here. I thought some of these were great. This one was how to call PowerShell without ever calling PowerShell. That came from Daniel Bohannon. Both of these came from Daniel Bohannon over at FireEye. And this specific one is you just run 4 files, and basically will eventually execute PowerShell with no exit on there, and you could just launch PowerShell without that. A good EDR bypass, by the way, for all you folks. This one down here I thought was really brilliant. So is everybody familiar with what we call living off the land binaries and scripts? Is anybody not familiar? Feel free to raise your hand. Okay, got a couple? Okay, I'll explain it real quick. So if you look at exploitation, right, our whole goal is to get code execution onto a system, right? We want to get code execution on a system. Now, granted, we might have other objectives, password stealing or things like that, bypassing multi-factor authentication, et cetera, et cetera. But with exploitation, our whole goal is to get code onto that system that we can then run to compromise that asset, and then from there do ransomware or move laterally across the environment to other systems. Primarily, I gave a talk, I think it was DEF CON 13. It was the very first ever PowerShell security talk. And as you've talked to the folks at Microsoft, they'll say that I was the first person ever to give a PowerShell security talk, which is really cool to say, like, you're kind of like the father of PowerShell security. Kind of kicking that thing was kind of neat. It's called PowerShell OMFG. And it was when PowerShell had first come out, and it wasn't in every operating system yet. It was Windows Vista at the time. And they were looking at making an optional requirement in Windows Vista, but they had come out with an announcement that any further operating systems would have PowerShell embedded into it. So I decided to take a look at it with one of my good friends, Josh Kelly, and we're like, wow, this is really powerful. You can do a lot of great stuff with it. And I said, listen, giving a full-fledged programming language onto a Windows environment, aside from VBScript and others, is going to be pretty damaging, I think, to security, especially with no logging and everything else. It's going to be a big deal, and it's going to be one of the main fronts of attack. And lo and behold, PowerShell has become a major front of it. Now, one thing I'll say about Microsoft is that Lee Holmes, literally the catalyst for security in PowerShell. That he deserves everything that he gets and more, and a raise, I'm sure. He literally got everything that is currently in PowerShell with constrained language mode, with logging, verbosity, and that you have in there, script block logging, all the security features that we now know inside of PowerShell. You all just have to kind of update your stuff from PowerShell version 2 up to PowerShell version 6 or above. Anyways, so that's PowerShell. Well, the way we used to hack about 10 years ago is we would look for things like Java, right? Which had a lot of major issues in it, or Adobe, which had a lot of major issues in it, or Office products, which would still have a lot of major issues in it. And so you'd have these products, and we say, well, we know that a user probably has these products in their system. So we know that it's there. It's the same thing with living off the land binaries and scripts. And this is why it's so kind of damaging, because it circumvents application whitelisting or application control, is that Microsoft shifts with binaries across the operating system that allow it to work, right? You have calc.exe, for example, right? It's code signed by Microsoft. It has a specific function that it produces. Well, other binaries in the Windows operating system have additional functionality built in as well. Like for one of my favorite ones, and I'll show you a demonstration of this, is regsvr32. It's under the system32 directory, and regsvr32 has a /i parameter that allows you to go and download scriptlet tags directly from the internet and run it without any type of detection whatsoever. So you can go and download code directly from the internet and execute it automatically without any type of detection. So using a code-signed Microsoft Windows binary to then go and download code directly off the internet and execute it in an authorized state. There's about 77 of these binaries in Windows that do it. MSHDA, CBD.exe, CSE.exe, MapInject. There's a whole bunch of these, right? Even BGInfo, the background info that you use to show the IP addresses, has remote code execution functionality into it. So there's a lot of different things that are code signed by Microsoft that give you full capabilities. Now, let me show you a little demonstration here really quick. Gotta power this back up again, sorry about that. So, this is a fully updated version of, if it comes back up, I hope to God it does. It'll come up, just take a second. There it goes, oh my God, or not. There it goes, woo! All right. So I got a fully up-to-date version of Windows 10, and And this is an example of what regSVR32 would look like as an attacker, okay? You give it a /i/edit, and the /i is the most important, and we're just gonna go to trusttech.com as an example, okay? And so here, we're just gonna go and download a scriptlet object. It could be whatever extension type you want to. It doesn't have to be XML or TXT or SCT or anything like that. It can be whatever you want to. Could you imagine hosting something on GitHub, and it's just a GitHub project and it says readme.txt? Is your defenders gonna see that? Hey, probably not. And so this will basically create a scriptlet object and execute this code for us. Now, interesting enough, Microsoft knows that this is bad, right? So I'm running the latest version of Windows Defender. If you notice here, it was last updated the 24th, so 4 days ago. Okay, so it's about 4 days old, which, you know, hey, I didn't hook it up to the internet today, I apologize. But if I run this, what happens? Ooh, we got snagged by antivirus, right? It must be a really good detection, I'm sure. Let's take a look at this. What if I throw a caret into here? Wait, hang on. Ooh, too good, okay. What if I throw another caret here? Oh, still denied. What if I throw 3 carets? For this screen to go away. Oh, we get through. Thank you, everybody. That's my demo. I'm Dave Kennedy. Good to know. This is what we're dealing with today when it comes to detection and prevention. And this is a clear-cut case of what we see in EDR products too, by the way. EDR products, looking for that /i. Throw 1 caret in there. Does it get seen? Throw 2 carets. 3 carets, you're good. Sounds good. Another couple funny ones, throwing legitimate words into your code. Take a dictionary and just have variable substitutions in there of dictionary words, because it makes it look more predictable from an analysis perspective that it's legitimate because you're using legitimate dictionary words, not coding language stuff. There's so many different tricks that we have out there, but it's super trivial. Does this make me an elite hacker, by the way? Yeah, right? I just bypassed Windows Defender, right? Got rated #1 in the antivirus category in this year in whatever the heck magazine that was, right? #1. Got around it, right? 3 carets. So, you know, with living off LAMP binaries and scripts, that's a whole nother attack surface that we have available to us. And what I was going to get to this one is that this one was found in the wild, which I would ask, would anybody here actually detect this? And I'd like to see an honest answer. Don't be like, my monitor detection program is the best. I would. All right, listen to what it's doing first, okay? It's going out and it's using certutil, okay? Everybody familiar with certutil? Import, export certificates. There's a -ping option where you can download code directly from the internet with certutil. Why that was ever a feature? Right? Don't know. But hey, it's cool, right? You can download code directly from the internet in any context and use certutil for it. Fine, sounds good. Now here's a crazy detection. They download the PowerShell code directly through certutil and then execute it with PowerShell, never calling out with PowerShell at all in the first place. Pretty awesome. Where did you detect that? No one? Looking for certutil beaking out to the internet? What are you looking for? You don't have to do that from command prompt. Well, that one's Command C, but you don't need to run it from command prompt. So by the way, as an attacker, I can't remember the last time I actually dropped into a command prompt. By the way, we know you all look for us running cmd.exe, but that's a good one. Or leverage it completely in PowerShell. So. And that's the good way of doing it, right? More on that behavior of understanding applications that haven't beaconed out in the first place, and then from there going there. Totally agree. Yep, I completely agree. Baselining your environment sounds like a marvelous concept. So by the way, without talking about this, most of the folks in here, defenders, probably wouldn't have known that you could do that, right? That there are ways with 3 carets to get around Windows Defender, right? Or there are ways with certutil to go and do this. Or, you know, one of my favorites is mshta.exe. Most folks know about HTA files. So HTA files are high content HTML files. And what's damaging about them is you can run them in a browser and have any browser execute them. So they basically pop up, you can hit open and do anything you want to there. And so with HTA files, most people block HTAs at the firewall, right? So they don't allow those to actually execute. But mshta.exe is a phenomenal resource. You can point msht.exe to any website you want to. Again, download the code and execute it directly for you. They have Mimikatz running off of MSHDA. They have whatever you want to running off of MSHDA without an issue. So again, a lot of issues that with Microsoft code signing applications that give us code execution functionality. But it comes into sharing. You wouldn't know about that if you weren't here today. Your blue team probably wouldn't know about it unless you tested it out in their red team. Your threat hunters wouldn't have known about it unless they've seen it in the wild before. All of those pieces of knowledge coming together to work together collaboratively works really, really well. Number 4, behavior. We focus on, and Jeff Moss nailed this on the head. It was last year at Black Hat before we introduced the Keynote. And Jeff Moss said, as an industry, we are focusing solely on the techniques, and we have no idea what the tactics and procedures of attackers are. And he's spot on 100% right. MITRE ATT&CK is a great example. MITRE ATT&CK is a great, phenomenal resource. Don't get me wrong, it's great. It walks through a lot of techniques, allows you to do some simulations in your environment, but it is not a cheat sheet for detections. It's not what it was designed for. If you're trying to do whack-a-mole detections off of the technique section of MITRE, your program's probably missing a substantial amount of gaps when it comes to attacking, and I would say it's probably pretty easy to circumvent your detection criteria. So we are focused on the techniques, not tactics or procedures. So once we realize that, we can start to look at what that means to switch more to the tactics and procedures, behaviors. And behavior is a loosely leveled term across this entire industry. But again, a behavior. Why is Mary in sales using PowerShell in the first place? That's a good baseline. That's a good behavior, right? Why is RegSVR32 beaking out to the internet when it hasn't before in the wild ever before in the past? Those are great behaviors in your environment, things that you can count on to look for things. Again, is it going to generate false positives? Absolutely. Can we minimize those false positives in baseline our environment? Sure. Do we need people to do that? Yes. I already said that earlier today. So those are some of the things that we focus on. A good example of a behavior is I was going into a company doing a threat hunting exercise. And it was one of those engagements where the first minute you sit down, you're like, I got it. I got him. I got a good one. And it was an Exchange server running as a system account on Exchange server, which also happened to be a DC. It wasn't exposed to the internet, thank God. That was one interesting piece about there. But it's also a DC. And the best part about it was they had a PowerShell script that was going every night at 2 o'clock in the morning, going to China and downloading a binary directly into memory through PowerShell, right? Non-code sign, all that other good stuff, right? And I'm like, I sit there and I see this attack, and I'm like, I just made my money for this one. I'm good. Like I got APT in here. I got some hackers. We're gonna dive into this. Everything's fine. And I'm like, I go up to the customer. I'm like, hey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you all are breached like really bad, like domain controllers and command and control and all this other stuff. And he's like, oh my gosh, and he starts bringing up the incident response team. We start looking at it. And it turns out they have a third-party marketing company that does metrics off of the Exchange performance that's out of China that downloads code sign binaries at 2 o'clock in the morning, apparently. And it was perfectly legitimate. It was fine. On a DC. Hey. HTTP as well, which is even better. It's like literally every step of the way, right? And it's like they're using attacker techniques. Their code is obfuscated. You're leveraging invoke expression to go and download code directly from the internet. All great stuff, right? So these are the things that we typically see in an environment where you're like, hey, I found something. It's a behavior. I want to know that behavior is there, but I can baseline and look for other things in our environment, right? So visibility becomes critical. I'm going to show you an example here in just a second of getting around visibility or a lot of the traditional protection mechanisms that we have. But protection takes time. And the biggest piece that you can walk away out here with is that while protection takes time, we can augment things with detection to get better and faster at what we're doing. Good example is when that DD Auto came out a couple years ago, right? Remember that? DD Auto came out as a way to get remote code execution into Excel files without macros, right? And so with that, Microsoft said at the time they weren't going to patch. They eventually ended up doing it based on the damaging criteria it had. But with DD Auto, it was being used in the wild within 7 hours. 7 hours. We saw ransomware campaigns hitting it. Could you implement changes in your environment within 7 hours across your entire organization? Probably not, right? But can we detect certain things in our environment within 7 hours? Probably. If we're getting the right sources of information, right? So again, detection becomes much faster, much more nimble. We still focus on protection because we're not giving up on that. But we still need to focus on those detection pieces and being faster. Some quick breach statistics. This is over binary defense. We analyzed a bunch of code execution samples. And what we found is that 82%, I said 84, I apologize, I got the stat wrong. I did get the numbers wrong, dang it. 82% are executables. So still to this day, 82 is executables. 13% is PowerShell. 4% is living off the land binaries and scripts. So living off the land's very small number, but one that most companies are probably trying to focus the most on when they're not even getting PowerShell logs. They're not focusing on when they're probably allowing executables in their user directories. And again, our priorities become completely skewed and different. It was customer data, yeah. Aggregating our EDR pieces for it, and then our SIM pieces for it.
Okay, so there were actual things that made it to endpoints.
Correct. Things that actually made it to endpoints. Yep. Some breakout time frames. On average, it took about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, to break out of a specific system. So when a machine becomes compromised, what happens from there? You know, how do they move out and spray laterally across the environment? It's about an hour and a half. So us as defenders, we have about an hour and a half time frame to respond to that specific incident and then go from there, right? Now here's the thing. If an attacker customizes anything at all, they typically go undetected. And what I mean by that is our reliance on tools and technology. Those tools themselves typically go unnoticed. Now, where I get busted is not from a tool. Where I get busted is from people. And so every time I go into an organization, we already know how to get past this EDR product and this antivirus product and this specific protection mechanism. We know exactly what we're doing. When we get tripped up, it's by people doing creative things or looking at unusual behavior. Customized stuff works. Take a technique, modify it in any way. Again, the 3 carrots versus 2 carrots. Throw in 7 carrots. Throw in 10 carrots. You get highly obfuscated with 10 carrots, I'm telling you. You might not be able to read the code at that point. I wouldn't even know what to do with 10 carrots. That's some OG stuff right there. Build your own evade detection for sure, right? A good example of this is I wrote a tool in 2013. And it was a simple command and control infrastructure that uses HTTP and advanced encryption standard to communicate over. And it was a byte compiled Python program, okay? And it was downloaded over 1 million times a trusted second. What it would do is it would establish a shell over HTTP or HTTPS, over AES, and allow you to communicate back and forth. I uploaded it to Virus Soldiers to kind of take a look at how it would get detected, because, you know, uncode signed binary, malicious as all heck, been downloaded 1 million times in the wild. And 3 out of the 67 or so actually detected it as malicious, which I thought was pretty amazing. So again, you didn't have to customize anything. Just use what was already available out there to me today, just kind of obscure. So let's do a demonstration really quick. Now I'm going to show you a video, and then I'm going to do it live. So here's an example of, let me get the play button if I can find my mouse again. Oh, I'm not supposed to have sound on that. Hang on. Why isn't the mute working? There it goes. Okay, try that again. There we go. Okay, so we're going to run Unicorn. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use something out of the box, Meterpreter, Metasploit, okay? And Metasploit is very commoditized. Would you say a lot of folks use it? So, you know, if you just take it out of the box, it'll get detected by antivirus or something else. We're going to have a callback to 172.16.221.171.43. We're going to go ahead and just decode it really quick. You'll see the code here in just a second. I'm just going to decode the values here really fast. And I'm going to get the raw code that's going to be executed onto the system and what's going to be seen by AMSI, or the anti-malware scan interface. I'm going to run it. Here's the code. It's obfuscated, of course. Now, we're going to go ahead and paste this over to the PowerShell interpreter over here on the right-hand side. We're also going to start a listener for Metasploit as well at the same time, so that we have something to catch our shell in the event that we're successful. So over here, you can see we have our PowerShell interpreter. And we're going to run MSF console. And over here, we're going to hit play. Oh no, it's kind of blurry, but we got stopped by AMSI. The anti-malware scan interface blocked us, and it's a virus. What we're going to do here, just really quick, is we're going to take a look and say, well, I wonder what part of the code is actually getting detected by antivirus, okay? So let's go ahead and run that. So if I just cut that out and I hit play, well, okay, it doesn't get picked up by antivirus. So the last line of my code is getting picked up by antivirus. So man, must be a really good detection, I'm sure. What if I create a variable, just copy that line, and paste it? It can't be that easy. Yep, it is. So funny story about this. You get your shell and everything else is great, right? Funny story about this one specifically is that Unicorn went for years undetected, years and years and years. And then they started to get more popular, and they started writing antivirus signatures for it, okay? And it became a battle between Microsoft and myself. I'm sure I have horrible, horrible names being called at me over there. And great folks over there, by the way. I love everything that they're doing, and they're definitely getting better. But one of the funny parts is that they started writing signatures for Defender every single week. So I got upset. And 1 week, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to spend a week and write a program that just does all this for me automatically. And so what it would do is it would go and check out the latest Defender signatures It would check to see if it got hit by antivirus. If it got hit by antivirus, it would automatically rewrite the code for me. I wrote a PowerShell interpreter for Python in it. It would rewrite it for me. It would had integrated into GitLab checks, so it would build and pass and make sure I got a shell back and everything. I automated my whole framework, and it would automatically do a pull request for me to see whether or not I got past it. So within about 30 seconds of a new signature being released, I already had a bypass already up on GitHub. So that went on for like 2 months, and they finally gave up. So this is pretty good. I feel bad for the folks that are writing that, by the way. I mean, that does suck. So here's a version. I'll show you a funny thing here. Some quirks. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but let me show you an example here. Again, we're running the latest and greatest. I got a listener up here right now. Make sure my IP didn't change over the course of talking here, which has happened before. Go ahead and play. We're gonna run our code, auto unicorn. And notice here, I got a virus threat protection found, right? Got busted. What happens if I hit play again? It works. No idea. Just to prove that I'm not crazy here. I mean, we're on that box. So just run your code twice. And you're fine. I don't understand what's going on here anymore. You could also circumvent this by, if you do something like, a couple examples. So if I run this code here, this is the decoded code. You just take this bob here, which is your shell code, and you just replace it with, instead of using like symbols, you just replace it with numeric values, like 55555. It also circumvents all the detection criteria up there as well. Again, really hard stuff, okay? Really tough to do. Makes me lose sleep at night. Oh, another funny quirk about that, I was testing Unicorn one time, and I'd run a command, and then I'd run another command, and then it was, for some reason, it would be like, this is being blocked by antivirus. So my first one would work, but my second one, my third one, my fourth one wouldn't work. And then I realized there was a bug in Defender where if you submitted something in PowerShell from the command line, if for some reason their logic layer started marking every single command as malicious. So if you did like A = 1, it'd be like, you're being blocked by antivirus. A = 2, you're being blocked by antivirus. You have to restart your computer to get rid of that. That was a big bug that they actually ended up fixing, which is good. So that's kind of all over the place. I'm not sure exactly what's going on over there. Oh, still in the, 1 second. Get back here. There we go. So number 5, leadership. People, leadership, and communication is extremely important. Where I see most programs fail is not having the right leadership in place. And what I mean by that is, when I was the chief security officer for Diebold for a number of years. And when I got to Diebold, there's actually a great talk over at DerbyCon this year that I gave, and my CIO came, and and 2 other folks that I worked with on the security team came. We all talked about how we were successful at our company. And what was interesting is that the CIO and me were best friends. And we worked together to do what was right for that company, no matter what it was. Whether it was, hey, you're being too crazy on security, we'll duke it out and figure it out in the parking lot, or we're all just friends trying to figure things out in the right way of doing things. And we got more accomplished in 3 years than I've seen any other program move in 5 or 10. And a lot of that had to do with when I first became the chief security officer over at Diebold, what did I do? Did I rip out all the technology? No. Did I go and I hire a whole bunch of people? No. I went and I bought a whole bunch of beer and pizza for the IT folks, like a whole bunch of times. And because I became friends with them, like, hey, I have your back, you have mine. One of the funny stories that I had with Diebold is that at the time we were looking at implementing ScanSafe, which was, it got acquired by Cisco. And ScanSafe is a phenomenal product. The way that they did it at the time is they had these things called beacon servers. And you could basically proxy chain your beacon server so that you didn't go out 18.443 across your environment anymore, okay? So my goal was to disallow all egress ports, period, and only allow 18.443 for specific exceptions, and 21 for specific exceptions across our entire global enterprise, okay? It's a pretty awesome feat, right? No egress ports whatsoever, and 18.443 completely gone across the entire network. You can't egress out 18.443 unless you go out through the proxy and then hit with ScanSafe, which is SSL termination and everything else we had good visibility into. And so I had this project where it should take a normal company probably, what, a year to implement something like that, right? Across your globe, maybe 6 months. Did it in 3 weeks. And the way that I did it, is I tried to find we were a big ITIL shop, okay? And I found a change control request that had to do something with like tweaking the scan safe server. And I'm like, hey, Mark, and Mark was in networking. And he's like, I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, can you just make this one rule? I think I got everything done, but can you make this one rule where you're blocking 8443 across the entire company? And he's like, man, I don't think that's a good idea. You're gonna break some stuff. And I'm like, it's okay. There's this change control thing here that you know is kind of like that. It kind of sounds like it. So we can just tuck it underneath there and see if it works. And he's like, nah, man, I'm not gonna do it. So I went to Scott, who's the guy next to him. I'm like, hey, man, can you get rid of 8443 across the network? And it's kind of like he's like, I don't think it's a good idea. And I'm like, listen, if you get in trouble, I'll take all the blame for it, okay? And so we ended up doing this sweeping change across our entire company within 3 weeks and broke our entire production instances of where they produced ATMs at. Because they used signing to sign the actual boards for each ATM, and stopped production of all of our manufacturing facilities for about it was like 4 hours. It wasn't a big deal, but good enough. We didn't get in any trouble whatsoever because it was a specific change we're trying to accomplish across our entire environment. And so, you know, fun stories like that. I have story after story after story. We had a customer application where I accidentally found blind SQL injection, and I overwrote everybody's password to the same one on accident, and did completely crash the application. Yeah, so you learn. You're right. I was younger Dave. But the piece I wanted to hit with this and the leadership piece was, like, the folks that I worked with knew that I had their back no matter what. If they messed up or if I messed up, we had each other's backs no matter what. I would go to bat for them. I would make sure that they had the right resources to be able to accomplish what they needed to do. Leadership is really, really important. People is really, really important. To have people to go and do things to help you out. Communication is really, really important. I didn't just go and do things and just like, hey, I'm going to shut this down and that's that. I worked with people and communicating those specific things of why we're doing things to an organization. One thing I'll say is that if you can't make a change in a company, move on. Time and time again, I go to a person's or organization like, man, we really want to come in because I want you to smash our entire company because our IT folks just won't do anything we're doing. And I'm the only person in security, and they don't want to do it. I mean, we have 100,000 people, and there's one person dedicated to security. You know, this is you know, my struggle every single day where I'm just fighting fires every day, and I can't do it anymore. If you can't make a change in a company that you're working with, it's time to move on. Move to a place that will make a change. Move to a company that wants to change in a way to get better for information security. And I'm a huge advocate of that. If you're at a place where you're no longer feeling effective, or you've already done your job, you've already left your legacy onto that organization, go somewhere else and do it again. It's awesome. It's exciting. It's fun. It's exhilarating. You get to do new things. You get to figure things out in a different way. All those things become really, really important. So in closing, the 5 things, right? I talked about, what did I talk about? I don't remember. Sharing and collaboration, right? Leadership and communication, behavior, right? What was the other one? I forgot the other one. The basics. There we go. The basics. That's what I was looking for. The basics. All of those things make up what we are today in security. And it's really easy to get sucked into, hey, I need to start going off these living off the land binaries and scripts and blocking all this stuff when we still have password 1 out there. Focusing on the basics becomes really, really important in your environment. Collaborating with people becomes really, really important. What? What are you doing? I thought I was getting smeared off iced here for a second, so I was getting nervous. Yeah. Yeah, next year. So I would say, you know, what's really awesome is events like this, like B-Sides is amazing. When Alex, he's like, hey, can you come on here and speak at B-Sides? I'm like, sure. What's the date? Let me make sure it works, and I'll fly on a plane and come out here in 2 seconds. You know, it's amazing that we have a community of people that want to share their experiences, that want to work together to collectively make the world a better place, and that's exactly what we're doing. So, you know, we're working together, figuring things out, we're making things better, and I can say, again, I've been in this industry for a long time. It's like 18 years, which is really friggin' weird that I have been in this industry for 18 years. 19 years. 2000 was when I got into the security space. 19 years, almost 20 years, which is horrible. I mean, I'm getting old. You know, 20 years in one individual industry, and I can say over the span of 20 years, we've gotten so much better as an industry. We're going to continue to do that again. And to your point earlier in your presentation, you know, paving the way for our next generation of kids, getting out of the way and stop being that person's like, hey, you need to, you know, build your own Cat5 cables in order to get a job here. You know, things have changed quite a bit in 20 years. It's no longer our mudding days anymore. It's no longer, you know, modems and BBSs. You know, we're doing things in a different way that we had before, and it's better. It's just better. I love all the showstoppers when the cloud came. Like, we were going to stop it in the first place, really, or even waterfall. Like we're not, like, they weren't going to eventually go to Agile to get stuff out faster. Like, hey, what you're saying is that I can get all my stuff out way faster and not have to hire any more resources? Yeah, but there's going to be a whole bunch of bugs in it. But hang on, you said I can get it out faster, and I can get some of my cars. Yeah, but there's going to be security holes. No, what you said is it's going to be out faster. Like that was going to stop a business, right? Or cloud. Hey, we don't have to hire all IT folks, which, by the way, best thing ever, right? Hey, you get to move to the cloud. You don't have to worry about IT folks. You don't have to worry about scalability of everything. Is that true? No, it's not true. In fact, I would say the past 9 engagements that I've done going after a cloud environment, I've broken into every single one of those cloud environments based on configuration issues. So again, doesn't mean it's necessarily better. But anyways, we're all working together to come together to get better at what we're doing. And so let's continue to make the world a safer place in security. I think we're all doing that right now. Share your experiences, figure out what makes you unique, and share those experiences. Get on stage and start talking about that stuff. That's what makes us an amazing collaborative industry, and it's just going to continue to grow as it is. And just want to give a special shout out to Jack Daniel over there for all the stuff he does for BSides. Let's give him a round of applause. That is an incredible man right there, one that I've gotten to know over the many years. And Jack probably doesn't even know the story about when I first got introduced to Jack Daniel. I think it was at ShmooCon 2 or 3. Jack was out ranting and raving about something cybersecurity on the Pulse Security Weekly podcast on the outside area there. And I was like, man, this guy's really, really smart. And I just sat down and listened to him. And since then, I've been a follower of Jack for, what is ShmooCon 3? What are we on now? I don't even know. It's been lots. Like I said, we're getting old, so 15 years or whatnot. So it's an incredible person over there. So again, thanks again, Jack, for all you do. So thank you all very much for coming out to my talk. I hope you learned something new. Remember, 3 carrots can completely bypass anything else out there. You're all set, but thank you all very much, BSides. Appreciate it.